In this video, we'll create a responsive Bootstrap 4 theme from scratch. Okay guys, so let's check out the Bootstrap 4 website design from the top of the website before we get started with the tutorial so we know what we'll be designing here. So in the upper left hand corner we have the Bootstrap logo, and throughout the tutorial I'm going to show you how you can add your own images in here. And then off to the right we have our navigation at the top of the website that's going to link us to different sections of the page. Then beneath that we have the fixed image landing that has the Bootstrap 4 text that will hover above it and stay fixed as we scroll up the screen. Then beneath that we have the Jumbotron with the text here saying check out my Bootstrap 4 course, and then as a little self-promotion the button off to the right will link to a Bootstrap 4 course that I created for Udemy, so if you want to check it out you could see that link or the link in the video description, which includes a coupon code that will take off 93%, bringing it to just $10. Okay, so back to the theme. The next section underneath the Jumbotron with the text and the button will be the features section, and you might notice that as we scroll down the page the navigation link will light up per section of the page. And we can link to different sections. So this is a 3-column section with the icon and the text underneath it, and when we scroll down to 768 pixels, or say an iPhone landscape width, it's going to change the mobile version. Then underneath that we have the 2-column section with the image on the left and the heading and text on the right. And then scrolling down to the testimonial section, we have again a title with the images, the stars that you see there, and then the text underneath. And then at the very bottom we have the context section, or the footer, which is a dark shade there with all of the text centered along with the logo. So let's take another quick look at the mobile version here before we get to our text editor and get started with the tutorial. Okay, so scrolling from the bottom there we have the contact section or footer, then the testimonials section, followed by the about section, then the features, Jumbotron, and then the fixed image section at the top with the Bootstrap heading over top of it. So another thing I'm going to show you as we build the website is how you can make that fixed image at the top full screen or whatever height you want it to be, and how you can add more content over top of it in addition to just the Bootstrap 4 text that you're seeing there. So in the description of this video will be the Bootstrap 4 theme files, or Bootstrap 4 theme 2 files, because this is my second Bootstrap theme tutorial. And once you've downloaded the starter files here, you'll see that we have index.html, style.css, and then the image folder here with all of the images included to complete the theme. Okay, so for our text editor, I'm going to be using the free program called Sublime Text, which you can see in the background here. So you can get that for free from sublimetext.com for Mac, Windows, or Linux. And then I'm going to have index.html open here in Google Chrome as we're building the website. So let's move over to Sublime Text and see what's already included for us inside of the starter files. Okay, so here I have open index.html and style.css, and you'll see that there's a little bit of information already included for us to fix a few issues with Bootstrap on the iPhone, among a couple other things. So from the top of index.html, we of course have the HTML tag here with doctype HTML. Then inside of that we have the head section with our character type standard UTF-8. Then the viewport meta tag here for mobile websites. Then the title of our website, responsive Bootstrap 4 theme, and I'll just say 2 here to separate it from the earlier tutorial I did. And then we have the latest version of Bootstrap CSS, then a link to our style.css sheet here. And then moving down the website, in the body section we have it where it says data spy scroll and then data target menu. So that's going to be for what's called Bootstrap Scrolls By. So when we scroll down to different sections of the website, the navigation link will stay lit up per section that we're scrolling to. And the way that we're able to do that is by having an ID for each section. So for example, here for the home section, that's going to stay lit up when we're at the top of the website until we get down to the features ID, which is already started for us beneath that. So it's right here underneath the Jumbotron section, which I already added for us because it's a little promotion for my Bootstrap course. And then as you can see, we have the rest of the sections here. We have the About and Testimonials and Contact section. Then moving over to style.css, we have an overflow X fix with the CSS there for a right gutter. Then we have our font family and the color of the font set for us, which is a similar color or the same color as the Nav Bar for the navigation. Then we have a media query started for us for the mobile version. And then down here we have a little bit of style added for the Jumbotron and the blue button off to the right. Okay, and then finally at the bottom of style.css we have a fix for the mobile version of the landing image at the top of the website here. And let me just show you really quickly how you can change the size of that. So the height 60 VH means 60% of the screen from the top there. So if you were to change that 60 VH to 100 VH, that's going to take up 100% of the screen, and we'll mess with that later so you can adjust that and the Bootstrap 4 text that you're seeing over top of it. Alright, so the first thing that we'll do in building the website is start off with our Nav Bar at the top of the website that includes our logo and the navigation. So that's going to be the dark bar that we're seeing here. So go over to index.html and we'll start that just beneath the navigation comment here that we're seeing in the HTML. So we'll say nav class, nav bar, and then since we're using the dark version of the Bootstrap nav bar, we'll say navbar-dark and bg-dark, and then we want it to change to the full width version at 768 pixels. So that's the medium width for Bootstrap, MD. So navbar-expand MD, and then fixed-top, because it's going to stay fixed at the top of the page no matter where we scroll down on the website. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh, and there we see the start to our nav bar at the top there. So the next thing that we'll be adding will be our logo off to the left hand side, and then the button, the drop down menu button. But the Jumbotron button that you're seeing there in blue, it's going outside of the page a little bit when we flex the website down. So I'm just going to change that to a medium-sized button instead of a large button. And if I refresh, there we go. Okay. Alright, so now let's size it back down, and that looks pretty good. So as I said, let's go ahead and move over to our logo where it says Bootstrap here. Alright, so back over to index.html, drop down underneath the nav class, and we'll start this off with a link. So we'll say a class navbar-brand, and then for the link here with href, I'm just going to leave it blank because we're going to keep it on the same page for now. And then let's add the image for our logo. So that's going to be image source, and then inside of the image folder it's simply bootstrap.png. So we'll reference the folder to reach that file with img/ and then bootstrap.png. Okay, then we can close out the link, and let's go ahead and refresh and take a look at it. So there it is. It's a little bit bigger than we want, but we can resize that in style.css in just a moment. But let's take a look at the drop down button here. So drop down underneath the link for the logo, and we'll start off with a button here. And we're going to give it a class called navbar-toggle. So this is going to be the toggle opening and collapsing the menu. So navbar-toggler, and then type button and data toggle collapse. And then for the data target, we're going to use the same reference to the menu that we do for the Bootstrap scroll spy that you see right here. So it's just going to be hashtag menu. And then inside of that, we'll have a span tag, which will make the three-tiered hamburger menu appear inside of the button there that we're seeing. Okay, so span class navbar-toggler-icon. Okay, so now if we refresh, there we have our drop-down button. And let's move on to our actual navigation here. So the first thing that we'll need to do is we're going to wrap our unordered list with a div class for the collapse or collapsible navigation menu. So div class collapse navbar-collapse as our classes. And then we can give it the ID that we've been referencing, ID menu. And then close it off, and inside of this we'll have our unordered list. So we'll say ul class navbar-nav, and then to position the navigation off to the right hand side we'll use ml-auto. Then we can close off our unordered list and start our list items for each navigation link. So li class nav-item, and we don't need to use the active class here, or in the link we don't need to use the active class. We'll just use nav-link without active because we're using Bootstrap scroll spy. We don't want one particular link to always stay active. And then I'm just going to leave the link blank here for now, so we can copy this and paste it a few times so we don't have to make a new list item for each navigation link as we add them. So we have 5 nav links, and the first one is home. So we'll reference the hashtag home for the ID, and then for the actual text for the navigation link, we'll just write home there with the capital H. And there we have our first navigation link. Okay, so moving on, the next one is features. So we'll write hashtag features, which will link us to the features ID down the page. And then we have the About Us section. So this one is just about rather than About Us. And then we can write About Us for the link text. Then we have testimonials. And I'll just write testimonials in here, or you can do reviews or change it to whatever you like. And then the last one is contact. So for the text you can put contact us or just leave it as contact. Okay, so now if we refresh, there we have our drop-down menu. So the contact link is going to stay lit up for now because we don't have any content throughout the page for the Bootstrap scroll spy to light up different navigation links for now. And before we move over to the fixed image landing underneath, let's take care of some of the style for our navbar in style.css. So let's start with navbar-brand for the logo, and then img, so we can target the image in particular. And let's reduce the height to 2 rem, which is the equivalent to 32 pixels. And then let's drop down and let's change the font weight for the navigation links to 300 to make it a little bit more lightweight and less bold. That looks pretty good. And then to space the characters out, let's say letter spacing 0.12 rem, which is about 1.5 pixels or so. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And then lastly, we'll want to add a little bit of opacity to our nav bar. So if we scroll up, you can see that some of the website is going to appear underneath the nav bar a little bit. So we'll use a style here called opacity, and then we'll just say 0.95. So you can reduce it to 0.9 or 0.8 and experiment with that to see how transparent you want it to be. And then one other option that you have for the navigation is to make it so there's less space off to the side of the logo and the actual nav. So you can add a div class called div class container dash fluid, and make sure you wrap the everything that's inside of the actual navbar class. And if you do that, it's going to make it so there's a little bit more space off to the side of the logo and the navigation. Okay, so moving down the theme, the next thing that we'll add will be the landing page that we're seeing here with the Bootstrap 4 text over top of it. So let's go back to index.html and drop down to where it says Start Landing Page with the HTML comment there. And we're going to add a div class that we'll call landing, and then within that we'll have a div class called home-wrap, and then one more where it's div class home-inner. So if you remember from style.css, these classes are already styled for us for the most part. We just need to add the background image that we want in addition to the Bootstrap 4 text, and the reason that it's styled for us already is because of some issues with the iPhone when it comes to landing pages. But let's go ahead and reference the home inner class in style.css so we can add the background image that we want. So we're going to say background image and then URL, and in parentheses and a single quote. Let's go ahead and reference the landing.png image here inside of the folder. So img/landing.png. Okay, and you can add your own background image in here if you want. So there we have it right now. And then, as I said in the beginning of the tutorial, if you want to change the height, you can go ahead and change that to 100 VH. Let me just get rid of the Jumbotron down here, so I'll just comment all that out. And there you can see the landing image taking up the whole page, so you can do that if you want. I'm just going to leave it up like this for a moment so we can add the Bootstrap 4 text on top of it, and I'll show you how to reposition the Bootstrap 4 text before putting it back to the normal layout of the original version we've been looking at. Okay, so just beneath the landing div class, let's go ahead and add a div for the Bootstrap 4 text. So we'll say div class caption, and then to center it, we'll say center-block and text center. So those are classes that Bootstrap will take care of blocking it in the center and centering the text. Caption is a custom class that we're creating for it. And then for the text, we'll just wrap that with a heading 1 and say Bootstrap 4. You can also add a button or whatever content you want in here, buttons or icons. So let's move over to style.css so we can get it to appear for us. And so there we see it underneath the background image. And there's the original height with it appearing underneath the background image. So let's go up to just underneath the home inner class, and we'll say dot caption for the class that we created. And then let's give it a width of 100%. And then we'll also say max width 100%. And then to get it to stay fixed on the page when we scroll down the website, we're going to say position absolute. And then Z index 1 to get it to appear on top of the image. And then to get it positioned where we want it, we're going to say top 30%. So it's always going to display 30% from the top of the screen. And we're not able to scroll down the page yet because we have we don't have content underneath it to scroll to. But let me just show you how you can make this full width. So if we do 100 VH and then 45%, there's like a full page landing image that we're seeing. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's style the heading 1 next. So we'll just say H1 and then font size 3.5 rem. Okay, and then font weight, let's make it bold at 600. And then to create the white border that we're seeing, we're going to use a style called text stroke for the heading 1. So we'll say WebKit, or that might not be needed anymore. Let's try it without that. So text-stroke, and then we'll just say 2 pixels white to create the border around the heading 1 text. Alright, so it looks like we do need the WebKit here. So we'll just say -WebKit -text-stroke. And there we have it. Okay, so that looks pretty good, except for if you may have noticed there's a little bit of background to the heading 1 there. So I'm going to say background color, and we're going to make a little bit of a transparent gray shade here with a RGB. So we'll say 49, 57, and 65 for the red, green, blue values, and then 0.2 for the opacity. So there we see it. You see kind of like a little gray bar appearing across it, which I think looks pretty cool. And you can mess with the opacity or do away with it completely if you want. But let's go ahead and change it back to the original here. So we'll do top 30%, and then I'll change this to 60 VH from 100 VH. Okay, so that looks pretty similar to the original now. Alright, so moving back over to index.html, let's go ahead and we'll just make it so the Jumbotron appears again, and I'll get rid of fixed bottom so it'll appear where it should, just underneath the landing page image. And since that's already done, let's drop down to the features section next. Okay, so that's going to be the features heading and then the 3-column section underneath it. So let's go to the features ID, and what we're going to do is we're going to create a div class to add a little bit of extra space when we want it, white space up here, and that's going to help us with using the Bootstrap scroll spy, linking in different sections of the page. So we can see the entire ID that we're scrolling to. So we'll just say div class padding, and we're just going to create a little bit of extra space with the padding here. So we'll say padding and we'll just do, let's do padding top to rem. Okay. Another thing that you could do is you can add a Bootstrap class like P-4 or something, which we'll mess with later on in the tutorial, but I kind of like just having a straight padding class here. Alright, so let's go ahead and wrap the columns here that we're going to create with a div class row, which is necessary whenever you have multiple columns with Bootstrap. And then inside of our div class row, we'll start it off with div class col12 because there's 12 different columns with Bootstrap to take up the full screen width here for the features section, and then we'll move on to the 3-column sections underneath that. Alright, so inside of that we'll add a heading 3, and we're just going to say h3 class text center to center it on the page, and then let's just say features. Okay, now if we refresh, there we have our features text. Okay, so moving on to the Let's actually add a little bit of padding here. So we'll say P-4, and that's going to space it out a little bit more for us around the features text there. So padding all around. PT would be padding top, for example, or PB padding bottom. So now for the 3 column sections, if we divide 3 into 12, we get 4. So we'll say col MD-4, MD for the 768 pixel break mark when it turns to the mobile version, and then text center. And inside of that, we can go ahead and add the image. So for example, there's the medium screen break. So let's add that icon image from the image folder. So we have user, phone, and bulb rather, for our icons. So the first one is just img source or image source img/phone.png, and then underneath that we have a paragraph block with a class called lead to make it kind of a modern, lightweight look that you're seeing there as opposed to the regular paragraph text. And then we'll just say responsive Bootstrap 4 theme. Okay, so let's go ahead and check it out on the version we've been working on here. And there we have our first section, and when we scroll around you can see the landing page image taking into effect now. So rather than writing the rest of these out, let's go ahead and save ourselves a little time and copy and paste it, and then all we need to change is the image file extension here to user and bulb for the third one. Okay, so there we have all 3 of our sections with the col MD4 for the 3 column bootstrap layout. And let's move down to the next section, which is the About Us ID. Okay, so let's scroll down to that div ID About Us, and let's add the div class padding once again to create some extra white space. And then underneath that we'll have our div class row, which will nest our columns within it. Okay, and you might notice that they don't take up half of the page exactly. So we're going to have the first one take up 5 of the 12 columns, and then that leaves us with 7 columns for the section on the right side. So we'll say col MD5, and then we can close out that div, and then for the right one we'll have col MD-7. Okay, and then close it out, and for the first one we'll have an image here. So img source, img/, and I think it's just about.png. Yep, so about.png. Okay. And now if we go and refresh, there we have our image, but it's not staying within the col MD5. So let's go ahead and add a really quick style in style.css to make sure our images don't span outside of their designated column. So we'll just say image max width 100%. Okay, so there we have it. And now the there's a little bit of padding around this section you may have noticed. So let's go ahead and just say P-5 for the row to add some padding. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And for reference, I think P-3 is 16 pixels or 1 rem, so you can do the math with P5. So then for the second column here, let's add our heading 3 where it says About Bootstrap. And then underneath that, we'll again use the P-class lead for the lightweight, modern-looking font. And then you can close out your paragraph tag. And there we have it, but there's a little bit of space underneath the heading. So for the P-class lead, we'll just say padding top -5. Okay, and then if we refresh, there we have it looking like the original. Okay, good. Alright, so the next section that we'll do will be our testimonial section, where it starts with what our students are saying. So let's drop down to that ID further down the page. And once again, let's add div class padding for the extra white space. And then we can close that out. And underneath that, we'll start our div class row. Okay, close that out. And once again, for the heading at the top, similar to what we did for the features section, we'll use a full width column, which will be col-12. So we can copy that and paste it if we want from the features section, or write it out here. So I'll just paste it down underneath row, and then we just need to change this to what our students are saying. Okay, so now if we refresh, there we have the start to our testimonial section. And let's add the left one first. So this is going to take up half of the screen. So naturally, if we divide 2 into 12, we get 6. So the columns that we'll be using will be col MD-6. So col MD-6. Okay, and then we can close that out. And inside of it, we're going to start with the image there. So image source img/woman.png, and then the image beneath that is stars.png, as you can see here. And then the other one is simply man.png. Okay, and then underneath that, we're going to use the paragraph lead class again. And rather than write this out, I'm just going to go ahead and copy it and paste it in here. Okay, so now if we go and refresh, there we have it, except for I messed up the stars image there. Okay, so I forgot .png. Alright, so there we have it appearing underneath her, but we will also want to center it. So let's add text center to the column, and there we have it. Okay, so now for the man side, if you want, you can go ahead and just copy this and paste it to save us some time. And then we'll just change this to man, and then I'll change the quote here for the testimonial. Okay, so let's go ahead and refresh, and there we have it appearing off to the right hand side. Then the last thing that we'll do with the testimonial section and the heading 3 at the top of this section is let's add some additional padding. So we'll just say padding 5, P-5, and that's a little bit too much padding on top. So let's just do padding bottom 4, and that should look pretty good. Okay, so that looks pretty nice with the white space that's there. It looks pretty even throughout the theme. So let's drop down to the last section, which is the contact section, where it says div ID contact. And let's start off with the padding class to create some white space above the footer or contact section. Then underneath that, let's add a div class footer, or you can use the HTML5 footer tag, that's up to you. And then within that, we'll have our row. I'm just going to say end of footer because we have multiple divs closing. It's nice to know which one is which. Okay, so drop down underneath div class footer, and we'll just say div class row. And then we can close out that div as well, and I'll just do a comment saying end of row. Okay, so now if we go back to the original, you'll notice that we have some space off to the left right here, making it so the column in the center can be have a maximum width of half of the page. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a bootstrap column for that space on the left, using up 3 out of the 12 columns. So we'll just say div class col md-3, and then we can close out that div, and then for our actual content we'll have col md6, and we don't need to have another md3 after the 6. When we size the website down, it's not going to appear anyways. Okay, so let's go ahead and add the Bootstrap logo, the same logo we used for the Nav Bar, which is img/bootstrap.png. And then if we go and refresh, it's not going to show up obviously because it's white with a white background. So let's go over to style.css and take care of a little styling so we can see the dark background of the footer. So we'll reference the footer class and the row, and then let's just give it its background color, which will be a similar shade to the navigation 343A40, or actually that's going to be the same as the navigation but without the transparency or the opacity. And then let's also make it so all the text is white, so we'll just say color white. And then for the logo, let's change the height to 2 rem, or 32 pixels, the same height as in the nav bar. And then let's just add some margin around it so there's some space between the edges of the footer and the logo. So margin 1.5 rem top bottom and 0 left right. Okay, so now if we refresh, there we have it at the appropriate size, but we'll also want to center it. So let's say text center for that column. And then if we refresh, there we have it displaying nice and centered for us. Okay, so let's add a little bit extra padding there above the Bootstrap logo. So within the row, let's just say P-5, and that looks like it's about the same as the original, except for let's add a little bit of additional margin above the footer. So we'll just say MT-4 for margin top, and that spacing looks a little better and like the original. So let's move down to the text underneath the logo. So let's drop down underneath the image and we'll use the strong tag. And actually I'll need to wrap that with a paragraph tag. So strong for bold if you're not familiar with that. Okay, so that looks good. And then moving on, we'll go to the R location line. So let's start a new paragraph, and then strong R location, and then we can close out the paragraph, and then we'll start a new paragraph, and this one will be 100 street name, and then we'll add a line break to add the R city text there, so BR for line break, and then R city AA 10,000 for the postal code. Okay, and then let's add the contact info line and make it bold. And then underneath that we'll add the phone number and the email address, and similar to the address, street address, we'll add a line break. Okay, so let's see how that looks. So it looks pretty good, except for there's some unwanted space in between the R location and contact info underneath them. So let's get rid of the closing paragraph tag. Right here for R location, and let's get rid of the opening one also. So I think that'll just create a new line and it'll just be bold. Okay, so that looks good. And then let's get rid of it right here and right here. Okay, so that looks good and just like the original. So that does it for the full width style for the entire theme. But if we flex the website down and we take a look at the mobile version, we'll find that the images and the sections look pretty good, except for some of the text we'll want to size down, like the heading 3 and the heading 1. So we'll do heading 1, heading 4, and heading 3. So let's, inside of the media query, say H1 2.5 rem from the 3.5, and that looks pretty good for the Bootstrap text. And then for the Jumbotron text, let's resize the heading 4 to 1.3 rem. And then for the features text, the H3 will just do 1.5 rem. Okay, so now if we refresh, there we have the text appearing a little bit smaller, and it looks a little better for the mobile version. And all the sections look good. So let's just check out the navigation one more time, and we can scroll to different sections of the page. And I'll size it back up. And feel free to use this however you want and customize it however you want. I want to thank you for watching. Please remember to like this video, subscribe, comment, and check out my Bootstrap 4 course in the video description. Then I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.